mean, generational wealth is usually built on assets, things that are making you money and things that are making money in the long term. Right? Well, let's purchase some real estate. Let's purchase some rental properties, or let's start investing in a Roth IRA, just as an example, like of a retirement account. These are things that are compounding over time that helps you build generational wealth, and they actually have tax benefits associated with them, right? And these are the things that we need to tap into a little bit more.
Welcome to Conversations with Verdel Jones. I'm your host, Verdel Jones, and we're about empowering your passion with purpose. We have an amazing guest today, and I'm so excited to be talking to Lorraine Millington. She is a tax strategist and the owner of Melanin Tax Solutions, which is dedicated to empowering business owners, small business owners, and individuals to tailor their taxes for tax solutions.
Absolutely.
So we're going to really get into that. And I really love the fact that you're passionate about empowering people with financial literacy as well. So thank you for that, and especially in underserved communities.
Absolutely. Yes.
So welcome to Conversations with Verdel Jones.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you. And one of the things that I know you are serious about is making the tax process less stressful
and fun.
No,
yes.
and fun. Okay. And
no.
How do you make the tax? We're going to get into some other stuff, but how do you make taxes fun?
I think a lot of it just stems from people have anxiety around taxes because it's often presented as being confusing, right? Mm-hmm. And so when you start to break it down where it's digestible and for people to be able to actually understand what's happening, it becomes fun because it deals with your money, right? And we all like money. We all want to know how to keep it and how to make more of it. So once you understand that, then it becomes fun. And then you're working with someone who makes it fun.
Right. And that is key. That really is key, because when you think of an accountant, so to speak, people have certain preconceived notions.
Absolutely.
Right?
Stuffy, buttoned up. It's like, no. No jokes, no laughter. Right, exactly. But we make it fun.
Make it fun, yeah. So you've been at this for over a decade.
Yes, over 15 years now.
Oh, absolutely.
15, yeah.
Okay. So where did the passion come from in reference to taxes? And I know it's more than taxes because it's really about helping.
Right.
So where did this passion come from?
I mean, it also did start with money, right? Like I've always, like most people, enjoyed money, but what really drew me to the taxes was understanding, like, okay, how do I keep more of what I'm making? And then how do I make it grow? And once I understood that, but then also understood how many people didn't know what that was, that's when I really got into the heart of taxes. And like not only wanted to do it for myself, but to help others also. And it's so enlightening and empowering for me to be able to help others, because then they realize like, oh, like I shied away from this for no reason, right? Like this is actually something that can benefit me and help me, and I actually want to do more of this. And just that alone just makes it more fun. It makes me want to even continue to help more people, but even learn more about what's already there. Because all of it is already there for us. Right. We just have to understand it or have someone that can understand it for you.
Absolutely.
Right?
And I think that's so important that you said that. I love that you said that, because I used to be a school counselor. And one of the things, and I was a director of school counseling, and one of the things that was really a challenge, I knew that stuff like the back of my hand.
Right.
But they had no idea.
Right.
And just making it more easier for people to understand the process.
That's taxes.
And who to go to.
Yep.
And that's the thing.
Yep.
You don't have to know it all.
Right.
You go to somebody who does.
Go to the person who does, right?
That's right.
Because that's the whole point.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you also often said that tax season shouldn't be about filing. It's really about planning.
Right.
And that's one of the key things that you really concentrate on is that planning of it. So can you walk us through that shift in mindset?
Sure.
And what that looks like for the everyday person or small business owner?
Yeah, I think the shift in the mindset comes from thinking about filing taxes to know how much of a refund you're going to get, versus shifting the mindset to, I'm going to file my tax to see how well I did. And what that means is we're not necessarily focused on getting a big refund. We're focused on like, did I break even, right? Like, did I pay just enough to be able to not but then just get back a little bit of a bonus. And that's the mindset shift that I want a lot of people to experience. We're not waiting till January to April to say, okay, how much is the government going to give me back of my own money, right? Like we don't want that. We want to say, okay, I played the game. I did the planning. I put the strategies into place. Let's see how well I did. Let's see how much I don't have to give back and how much I actually kept of my own money throughout the year. And I think that's the shift that needs to happen.
And that's so important. I remember as a younger person, I was like, oh, how much am I going to get back? Now I'm just like, oh my God.
And you've already spent that money in your mind and all of that.
Now it's like, I just hope I don't owe it. I don't want to get any money back. I just don't want to owe anything. So that is definitely a shift. But in saying that, if you work with someone like a tax strategist as yourself, that hopefully wouldn't be the anxiety that you feel.
Right. And I mean, that's why, similar to your question, that's where the planning comes in, right? Because you already know, you're not anxious about what's going to happen. Right. You already have an idea. We've already probably put some strategies into place to mitigate whatever may happen, right? Depending on whatever's happened during the year. So that's a great point because that stress, that dropping of the shoulders has happened because you're not like, oh my gosh. It's just like, oh, okay, let's see how well the strategy is.
Right, exactly. Like you said, it's a game. It really is a game.
Yeah, it's a tax game. Everybody wants to win games.
Everybody wants to win. Exactly. So for those who aren't familiar, what is a tax strategist exactly, and how does it differ for somebody who just files your taxes? Because there is a big difference.
There is a big difference. And this is not to downplay what anyone does relating to taxes, right? But when we think about it, a tax preparer is doing exactly what the name suggests. They are preparing your taxes, right? You are giving them your paperwork. They are completing a form or tax return and then submitting that more from a compliance standpoint, right? That's what tax preparers, that's what most tax professionals will do, compliance. When you start talking about tax strategy, that's the plan. That's the advisory side of the business, right? And so when you get to a point where you're like, okay, I want to start getting a little bit more serious and intentional about what's happening with my taxes and with my money, then you start working with a strategist who's actually analyzing what's going on. We're proactive in terms of, okay, this is what's happening. This is what will likely happen. Let's put a plan into place to make sure that we're prepared for these things.
So you don't have those scary moments.
Correct. As opposed to maybe a preparer that's more of the reactive side, right? Like there's nothing that, generally speaking, that can be done at that point besides, okay, like maybe we can apply this credit or that, but I can't find the Hail Mary at that point because
at that point
we're already past.
It's too late at that point. So the planning doesn't start, like you said, in January.
Right.
The planning starts the January before.
Right. The planning doesn't start with, hey, here's what can you do for me? Like that's not the plan. Right. Please, that's not the plan. But let's have the conversations now.
I always seem to have. I gotta change that up.
Like, please, can you help me? I was like, I can do my best. But let's start talking ahead of time so maybe we can make this a little bit easier for the both of us.
Yeah. Right? Absolutely. So how do you show up beyond the tax season? You do whether it be speaking engagements or webinars or workshops. How do you, reach the community in that sense?
Well, one of it is I love doing things like what we're doing right now, right? Just having the conversation and talking and enlightening people on what the possibilities are. So I definitely have speaking engagements such as this, interviews. I have conferences that are coming up where I speak on stages where I'm enlightening and sharing either tax strategies or more of the mindset shifts as it relates to money. And then I'm also starting a podcast, right? So I'm giving more daily advice or daily insights relating to what people should be aware of throughout the year. So those are some of the...
Right, because I think a lot of people might think tax season really starts in January, end of January. But it really doesn't. It's really an all year thing.
It really is an all year thing. And I've been sharing with people that right now, or at least after April, that's strategy season, right? So you have January to April, which is your tax filing season. But then after April, really until the end of the year, that's tax strategy season. So it doesn't really end. It just shifts to a different focus, I would say.
Okay. So we were talking about that anxiety and that nervousness, and when people hear IRS, which is scary. IRS,
Yep, those
right?
3 letters. Yes. Most 3 letters are scary, I think, for most people.
But you have a way of making that more approachable and, like you said, even empowering and fun. What are some things that take that intimidation out of it when you work with the clients?
I think we kind of touched on in terms of just the understanding. Like I think a lot of people, you don't know what you don't know most of the time, right? And taxes can be intimidating to the point where you don't even know what questions to ask. And so if you're not necessarily sure on what questions to ask, then you're not going to know how to get clarity on whatever it is that you're trying to do. And that's where I help, right? Like that's where the strategy, that's where the advisory side comes in. I help to explain, I break it down to a point where what is that show, like Smarter Than a Fifth Grader type of thing?
Yes.
It's I guess similar to that concept of we're just breaking it down into a digestible form where you can say, oh, okay, why didn't someone just explain it to me this way, right? Like how many times have I heard that from clients of like, thank you for explaining it that way. I wish someone would have just said that
then
versus
gotten it. Yeah, exactly. It's
and I think that's where some of the anxiety starts to go away as it relates to the IRS, because they intentionally make things confusing, right? Like the way that some of the tax law is and the tax code, like it's not made to necessary. It's there to help us, but you have to know how to utilize it.
Right. And I think too, with taxes, from a personal side of view, it's like, oh, you make this much money, there's nothing that can be done for you.
Oh, and that's where the strategy comes in.
Right. And that's the thing. And that's always the thought in my mind. Oh, we're not going to get this. We're not going to get that. So we get right?
Yep.
So yeah, I'm unpacking some of those things and preparing you to maybe qualify for those things is where that strategy.
And in those situations, like when you have excess, right? That's when we can really dig into the strategy of like, okay, well, let's place this excess over here, or let's maybe embark on this, or maybe let's start this. Like it's just shifting it from where it normally plays to somewhere else where it can play a little bit better.
Right.
Yeah.
The investments or things like that.
Absolutely.
There has been, people always talk about generational wealth, right? How does a tax strategy play a role in helping people gain that generational wealth?
I think a lot of it starts with assets, right? I mean, generational wealth is usually built on assets, whether you have real estate, whether you have businesses, whether you have stocks, like all of these different assets, things that are making you money and things that are making money in the long term, right? And so we're usually focused on the long-term game and not the short-term game, right? Of just like, okay, well, how can I do something that helps me right now?
Right.
And that's where the generational wealth comes in. I'm like, okay, well, let's purchase some real estate. Let's purchase some rental properties, or let's start investing in a Roth IRA, just as an example, like of a retirement account. These are things that are compounding over time that helps you build generational wealth. And fun fact, or surprisingly, right, they actually have tax benefits associated with them, right? And these are the things that we need to tap into a little bit more.
Absolutely. And it's so, as our parents are aging and their parents are aging, and there's so many things that you need to have in place because they have homes or whatever it might be. There's so many things that you have to know that people just don't know.
Yes.
And they end up spending so much money, losing the house or whatever it might be, or whatever assets it is because of things like that.
The estate planning, just in general, is such a not as talked about topic as it should be.
Absolutely.
And that also plays into taxes, right? Because from the mindset perspective of, oh, well, I don't have enough to put into a will or a trust. Like a trust, not only is it like a legal vehicle, if you will, or a legal asset, it's very much a tax asset as well, because it helps you pass down assets without creating a taxable event most of the time, right? So it always comes back to taxes.
Yeah, it always comes back to
taxes.
What is it?
Death and taxes.
Yeah, death and taxes. That's it.
It always comes back to taxes.
So you work with a lot of clients, and you help them tremendously just by, the couple of conversations we had. I can definitely see that.
I appreciate that.
Can you share a moment when a client that you had and they had an aha moment? I didn't know, I could do that with my taxes.
Sure. Over the years, I've had lots of stories, but one that comes to mind is enlightening a client to a paper loss. And so what do I mean by that? So going back to what I was mentioning about real estate, right? Especially from a rental property as it relates to real estate. When you purchase rental property, most of the time, one of the primary benefits of that real estate, of that rental property as it relates to your taxes is something called depreciation, right? And so this was an aha for a client because I'm basically explaining to them that you can have an asset that's making money in real life, right? Like this rental property, the tenants are paying their rent, that rent is paying the mortgage, like the property is making money for itself, right? But from a tax perspective, you don't have to necessarily show that property is making money. So what do I mean? So let's just to use easy numbers, let's just say this property made, I'm going to use $10,000 during the year, right? On paper, you're reporting that income as $10,000 with the rent that you received, right? But you're also deducting the expenses that it takes to actually operate that rental property, whether it's property taxes, electric, maintenance, cleaning, like all of these different things. These expenses that you're actually spending for the property is helping to reduce the income. And then on top of that, there's a tax credit called depreciation, which basically is a paper expense, right? Like it's not something that you're actually paying out. It's something that's reported on the tax return that then helps to reduce the income, right? So that's how you just said, right? Like it's just like, oh, I didn't know that this was applicable to me, right? So you can have assets that are making money for you so that you can use that money to invest or do whatever it is that you want. But on the tax return, you're actually not paying taxes for the most part. I mean, right. Like, but not every side, one size doesn't fit all, right? But in general terms, like your property is not showing income on paper. So this is how you leverage not only assets, but you're able to make your money work better for you. And that's just such a powerful option. Absolutely. As it relates to taxes and then just what you're doing just in normal life and building your portfolio and all of those things. So, wow. Yeah. See, I love it. It's such a great reaction.
So, okay. So how can people get in touch with you? I mean, you need to get in touch with Lorraine, like for real. I need to get in touch with Lorraine. I love it. So tell people how they can get in touch with you.
Sure.
And stay connected with you.
I would love to chat with anyone who's listening to this and they're like, oh, I know I need a tax strategist now, as opposed to maybe someone that just does my taxes. So I offer free consultations if you go to my website, melanintax.com. And you can also find me on all the social networks, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, at Melanin Tax as well. And then also check out my podcast, Melanin Money Moves, which will be on all of the Spotify's, Apple, all the podcasts, all the things.
Lorraine, it is always a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you.
I really could. We could speak.
We could talk all day.
Absolutely, because I love this stuff too.
I did not tell you it was going to be fun.
Yeah,
I told you.
You did. You kept your promise.
Love it.
Thank you for being a guest on Conversation with Verdel
Thank you
Jones.
so much again for having me. Yes.
And thank you everyone for watching Conversations with Verdel Jones, and we will see you next time. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, and follow us on social media so you will never miss an episode.